Okay. So we have. Okay, now I think we can finally get started. For those of you that are coming in by Zoom, we had some technical issues here. The projector was showing everything in green. So fortunately, y'all didn't have to see that. Okay, so as I was starting to say, this is AP1. This is the first half of the AP1, AP2 sequence. This half of A&P will cover chemistry and body structures. We will get into some organ systems as we go further along. The first half of the semester, we'll talk about cells. We'll talk about chemistry. We'll talk about energy, how our bodies get energy, things like that. Then we start getting into the interesting, not that any of that stuff isn't boring, but we get into the interesting stuff in once we get into bones and muscles, and then we finish up the semester in the central nervous system. And that's where we start getting into the organ systems that are a lot of fun. AP2, we go deep into organ systems, and we spend a lot of time talking about things that go wrong in our bodies, the pathologies, the diseases, the injuries. I always like to say that healthy people are boring, because when you go to your doctor's office and they look at you and, oh, you're fine, get out of here. Okay. It's almost like, did I pay for that? But I don't want them to find something, but you expect a certain level of curiosity from your healthcare provider every time. That's how things get detected. There's a lot of things you can pick up just by talking to your patients too. And one of the things that we do in AP1 and AP2 is try to teach you to think, do some critical thinking to work out problems, because there's a lot you can tell by observation. You can just looking at the skin, at the fingernails of an individual. Everybody's got different skin color. Doesn't matter what skin color is. Fingernails are all the same. You know what fingernails tell you? Oxygen levels. If your patient is experiencing low oxygen levels, fingernails are going to be blue. Doesn't matter what their skin color looks like. Fingernails give it away. So it's always something. Look at the fingernails. Maybe then that may trigger you to think, oh, maybe they're a little short of breath. Maybe they're breathing a little faster, or maybe their skin is dry, or maybe their skin's clammy, or maybe it's hot or cold. Little things like that, little observations. After all, if you're going into healthcare, you're going to be the first person a patient sees. And when you go to the doctor's office, who do you see first? Right? The nurse, the technician, whatever. There's a reason for this, to relax you, to get your information, to get you to engage with them. Now, if you're sick and you're feeling miserable, and I just want to go home and crawl back in bed and die, that kind of thing. Because we all have been there, right? You know what I'm talking about. But this is where you talk to someone who is a trained healthcare provider, but is a little more approachable than the physician, because he or she may not be as busy, or his or her role is designed to engage you. That's part of what they do. They take your vitals, they talk to you, and they ask you a bunch of questions, but they do it in a nice way. Whereas the physician comes in, and I don't know if you're like my doctor, but he's always backed up. He's always busy. So And it's good to talk to somebody. This is what you do. You get their confidence. You know, you ever hear of white coat syndrome? Anybody know what that is? Where you go into your doctor's office or your healthcare provider, and you're terrified by somebody in a white coat because and your blood pressure skyrockets. You're sitting there, you're perfectly healthy, and your blood pressure shoots up to like 200/100 or something like that. Blood squirting out your ears, I don't know. And it's only because you're intimidated by being there. And so you sit there for 20 minutes, and they take your blood pressure, and you're fine. By having a person in between there who is a trained provider. I have tremendous respect for everybody in healthcare. I have a very strong feelings towards the nurses. I send a lot of you, I will send a lot of you off into the nursing program. I can tell you that. So if you do well in this class, that's where you're going to end up, or into occupational therapy or physical therapy or any of the other areas. I hope I didn't forget somebody. So anyway, that's what we do. We want to teach you how to think critically. Not that you don't know how to think now, but we're going to teach you to think critically in a healthcare perspective. So, okay, so that's my little spiel on why we're here. And let me tell you a little bit about the course. First of all, the good news is there is no textbook that you have to buy. Okay, we stopped using a hardbound textbook a couple years ago because when the prices got close to $300, that's sort of outrageous. And so I went to OpenStax. OpenStax is a free textbook. In this case, the title of the textbook is Anatomy and Physiology. Imagine that, clever name. But it was done at Rice University. So it's a very, very good textbook. And it's all free. It's all online. And you can print out the sections that you want as PDF files. Now you can print out the whole thing. You can go online and order a copy. You can order a 3-hole punch copy. You can print out your own on 3-hole punch paper or punch it yourself. But there's no cost involved here, other than if you want to have a hard copy, other than the cost of your paper and your ink. Now, I also recommend that if you really want to have a good textbook just to carry around, because sometimes you got to feel like you want a textbook, go down to McKay's in Knoxville. They got lots of A&P textbooks there for under $10. They may be 20 years old, but they're still good. And it doesn't matter who it is, because nearly every A&P textbook is pretty reputable. There's a very small cluster of textbook authors, and they all pretty much do the same thing. So you can go to McKay's and pick up one. And last time I was there, they were like $6.99, I think, something like that. They weren't very expensive. And I've seen books from when I started here in 2004 all the way to the last time we fought. We like to buy the book by the author Mariev, and they still had some of hers on the shelf too. So just to have something to carry around, because A&P doesn't, human anatomy doesn't change. We don't grow a third arm every now and then. Okay, some people can, because that's just, literally it does. You've heard of polydactyly, right? Extra fingers. You can have extra arms too. But that's sort of not usual. But human anatomy and physiology hasn't changed for a long, long time. So while the names may change in some of the structures, or some of the physiology may change as more things are discovered, the textbook is going to be pretty good. So what you'll hear in here is anything that has changed, even from the OpenStax book. So we don't want you to spend a lot of money for the text. Along that line, there is no lab book either. Everything that you need for lab is in eLearn. All your course content for lab, all the PowerPoints are available in eLearn, just like they are in here in eLearn content. Now, the content for the lecture I just said, is in eLearn. It's organized by chapter. Chapter 1, the introductory chapter. We call it introduction. We spare no expense in that fancy name for it, but I have about 50 PowerPoints that will start today when I get done rambling. And we'll actually start talking about why we look at things the way we do. And we'll talk about the differences between structure and function. Structure is anatomy, function is physiology, how things work. And I also have the PowerPoint set up as a PDF file, so you can print them out. Because nobody wants to print out 50 PowerPoints, 8 by 10 PowerPoint. Nobody wants to do that. Somebody did yesterday, but it was, and they said it was an accident, because the PDFs give you 4 PowerPoints to a page. You print them out, bring them in. That's how you take the notes. You have something to write down, because I lecture off my PowerPoints, and it's really useful for you in preparing for your exams. So, because I go along and the topic area will be on the PowerPoint, and I'll talk about it and I'll elaborate on it, because I don't read the PowerPoint to you. I talk about it. I talk about what it means, what it's showing you, what the implications there. And if we go down a rabbit hole, we go down a rabbit hole, and that's fine. I love rabbit holes. So you come up with a question, that's great. I already got stumped yesterday in the AP2 class, so I had to go look something up for them, and I'll tell them about that tomorrow. So that's how you're gonna how we're going to do the lectures. I'm going to talk about the content on the PowerPoints. Everything you need PowerPoint wise, the PowerPoints themselves and the PDF files are in eLearn. And the only advantage of PowerPoints is to download PowerPoints, you get to see the animation. So, now, what else? Oh, the lecture is recorded. I still use Zoom because I have about 4 people online right now. Yesterday in the AP1 class, I had about 6 online. In the AP2 class, because most of them I'd had online in the spring, I had about 7 in the classroom and 20 online. That's changing though. Anyway, the point is, it's recorded and I post it every day to YouTube. So you can go back, review the lab, review the lecture, review the points, something you might have missed. Or maybe you had to go to the doctor, or maybe your car broke down, or maybe you got sick, or your dog got sick, or your grandma died 5 times. Don't laugh. Oh no, you can laugh. But my very first semester I taught here in 2004, I had one student whose grandma died 5 times. It took her to Vanderbilt every time she died. So now, granted, this is Tennessee, and 5 grandmas is not out of the realm of possibility, but we won't discuss anything about family connections. However, things are going to happen. I had somebody yesterday whose car broke down on the way to class on the first day of class. I mean, it's the worst possible day. So yesterday morning, I was almost late because I have a basset hound who's got pink eye, of all things. And I was trying to get the ointment in her eyes, and she was having none of it. So if you know anything about basset hounds, they're very, very stubborn, and they're also drama queens, like, oh, woe is me, and that's what she does. So I finally got the stuff in her eyes and then took off. So of course it was the first day of class. Things are going to happen. And when you have to miss the class, you're not going to miss the lecture, because it's all going to be on YouTube every day. And I'll send you a link every day right to the YouTube, to the location. I used to just say it's on my YouTube channel, but now I just send you the link right to the video for the day. And so every day you'll get an email from me with the link there, and you just click on that. And it's great for going back and checking something, or maybe you had to leave early, or you had to miss something. it doesn't mean that you can skip the class, because I like seeing all the smiling faces here, and even if you're not smiling. So I see you back there. So it's just another learning tool for you to use, and we'll do the same thing in lab. If nothing else, COVID taught us how to use Zoom, but more importantly, it taught us how to record lectures so that people can go back and look at them again and again and again. So why you'd want to, I don't know, but they're there. Let's see. Okay, so that's the lecture component. Now let me tell you a little bit about how we grade in here. We have 5 lecture exams. Each one is based on the topic area that we cover. So for example, lecture exam 1 covers unit 1. Unit 1 is the introductory chapter and the chemistry chapter. Unit 2 is cells and cell structure and metabolism. And unit 3 is bones and muscles. And unit 4 is, units 4 and 5 are the central nervous system and brain and the spinal cord and stuff like that. So the last 2 units are all going to be the nervous system. Now each exam is based on the unit. They're all multiple choice, and there are practice exams in eLearn. If you go into assessments, you go into eLearn and you see all the it's okay, it really is, I mean, one year I had somebody in here that opened up a big bag of peanut M&Ms and ripped the top off, and the bag spilled out, and we had peanut M&Ms all over. There's nothing you can do. You're not going to make the noise go away. So if you're going to do something like opening a drink, it's okay. If you're going to open a big bag of chips and they crinkle a lot, but it's okay. Things are going to happen. So it was almost like this time. So what are you going to do for me Thursday? You're gonna. Well, why don't you bring the M&Ms in on Thursday?
I've got a bag of chips in my car.
How about a bag of chips? There you go. So, nobody should get embarrassed about anything, so don't worry about it. I mean, we're going to be talking body parts. In AP2, you're going to be, well, in AP1, at the end of the semester in lab, you're going to be cutting up eyeballs and brains. So just keep that in mind. And we do tend to get very graphic in some of our discussions. So, okay, so the exams, 5 lecture exams, each one's worth 100 points. So that's a grand total of 500 points in the class. The final exam, which is cumulative and comprehensive, is worth 100 points also. So there's a total of 600 points in the class. Now, that means that 90%, since we grade on the scale of 80 to 89, 90 to 100, and so on like that, 90% of 600 is 540 points. If you earn 540 points, you got an A. It's just, even if you got 40 on the first exam and 100 on the next 4 lecture exams and on the final exam, you'd have 540 points. Doesn't matter if you tank the first exam. You got to look at the total number of points in the class. So we've tried to keep it as simple as possible. So if you're scoring in the 90s on each exam, you're in good shape. If you're scoring in the 80s, you're still in good shape. A B in this class is still a good grade. So you're going to get a numerical score for each exam. Just keep a tally of that, and you'll have a good idea of where you're tracking in the course. So as long if you're scoring in the 90s on each one, you're going to be fine. Now, there is extra credit. There is extra credit. It is totally optional. If you're doing very well in class, you may not need the extra credit. If you decide you don't want to spend a lot of time studying for the final exam, you may want to take advantage of the extra credit. A&P faculty are allowed to, we have the option of giving 25 points of extra credit. And what I've done is I've set up a soft chalk. You know what soft chalks are? They're like a video lecture with questions embedded in there. I have 5 of those, and you can find them in the e-learn content. They're worth 5 points each. It takes you about 10 minutes to go through it. It will dump in your grades in e-learn. At the end of the semester, I take the soft chalk scores, add them up, and then add it to your total points. So there's 25 points. Now 25 points may be enough to push you from a high B to an A. Yeah. There's no such thing as a low A. You know, it's an A. You know, if you squeak through with 89.51, you got an A. You know, a person with a 99 average has got an A, just like a person with an 89.51. An A is an A, or a B is a B. Those 25 points may make the difference. You don't have to do it. It's totally optional. But they're useful to help you go over content in a lecture, and you know, I just don't, like I said, I just dump them in at the end. And I know everybody's going to ask me, you know, around November, what about the soft chalks? What about the extra credit? I haven't seen them show up yet, and because no one's going to remember, I said I add them all at the end. Yeah, trust me, I've been down this road before now, but yeah, you'll get them. You'll get your points if you do them. Let's see, what else? I will take attendance every day. I have a sheet here to go around with. Let me get to some of these people marked. And yeah. And I will report the attendance every day for at least the first 2 weeks to make sure, you know, so that everybody is happy over in Morristown. So, but if you have to miss for anything, let me know. Send me an email, give me a phone call, whatever. You know, if you have to miss in the day of an exam, it happens. It happens to lots of people. It's not the end of the world. If you're taking your exam in class and you can't be here, let me know. If you're taking your exam online and you can't take it, you're not ready, let me know. You know, there isn't much I can't fix if you give me enough time. So I just need to know what's going on. So, and this is my 19th year here, and I've heard and seen everything. You know, there's nothing that can happen to you that I can't help you with, at least from my side. You know, we've had every type of family member pass away. We've had people going to court. We've had people getting arrested. We've had people losing their licenses. It doesn't matter. You know, that's life. Life is going to happen. We're going to try. We're going to get through it. And I will do everything I can on my side to make sure that you're not going to have distractions. If you're dealing with a crisis, then, you know, I don't want you worrying about the class. If you've got something going on, okay, let's get that resolved. I can always get you caught up. But we're going to deal with life while we're going through this too. So now I will tell you that if you do well in this class, you have an excellent chance of getting into whatever program you want to get in. Usually about 90% of I'll just use the nursing classes as an example. About 90% of the nurses that go into the program on this campus come from this class. And if you do well, you know, we worked very hard over a long period of time to build a good relationship with the nursing faculty. And they know when I send them students, they're going to be good. And everybody that comes out of my classes does well. I can count on one hand over 19 years the number of students that did not make it through the nursing program after I had them for A&P. So you'll know your stuff if you do well. All you gotta do is work. And we're gonna have time for discussions. We're gonna have time to explore things here. But I will, the pace will be fairly fast. Because we have this problem, we have more content than we have time. And it gets worse in AP2. So, especially when we get into, we got so many good things to talk about in AP2, we have not enough time. Questions? I've been rambling for what? Half an hour or more. Anybody have any questions? Yes, you can eat and drink in class if you'd like to. So you made that point for us very good. So I have to have my coffee. So did you have a question? Oh, you put your, okay. So, but that's fine. Lab will be a little different. I'll talk about that this afternoon. Usually if the labs are dry, meaning we're not doing anything special with chemicals, then there's not a problem. On the days that we would do anything with a chemical or dissect something, then probably no eating in the lab. Plus labs are down to, we'll break this down into smaller groups anyway, so we won't be all on top of each other. Actually, we're not. We have this room was designed for 55 people. So this is a great, according to what I see, we have about 44 people in here today, which is really nice. So first time this room has been this filled since pre-COVID. So let's see what else. Syllabus. The syllabus is in eLearn, and the syllabus outlines what you expect from me and what I expect from you. I'll answer emails within 24 hours, usually the same day. You send me an email, I'll get back to you right away. It tells you the time of the class. Dr. Malik notwithstanding, I didn't know he was going to go so long in his lecture this morning, so I have to. But I can't blame him because the clock back there says it's 22. So yeah, and it's really 11:45. So and so I understand why he was on a roll, and I really hated interrupting. So, and I apologize to everybody that had to wait in the hall. So let's see. Anything else on the syllabus? Like I said, everything is in eLearn. If you are going to Zoom occasionally, or even if you want to, I send everybody the Zoom link, and that's fine, because there might be days when you just can't get in, and that's fine. Is everybody local? Everybody Sevierville, that area, or anybody, so when we did these hybrid classes, I was so afraid we were stealing from other campuses, like Greenville or Morristown or whatever. And because we filled up, we had, as of this morning, I had 47 out of 48 registered for this class. But then I looked at the other classes in the other campuses, and they're all filled up too. So I felt pretty good that I wasn't poaching on anybody else's territory. So I know in the AP2 I have a little poaching in there. So, but that's sort of how we started out with them in AP1. Let's see. So any questions on anything? Okay, I'll tell you that if you ask me a question and I don't know the answer, I'll tell you that. I'll tell you I don't know the answer, but I'll get back to you on it. So if I can answer the question, I will. But I'm not here to play look how smart I am and show off to you. Because if I don't know it, I don't know it. I'll find out. I got stumped yesterday. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. First day of class, I get stumped. So, but don't be afraid to ask anything. Okay. Oh, yeah. Well, a few housekeeping things. The fire alarm goes off. Of course, everything else has happened this year on these buildings. If the fire alarm were to go off, we can now go back over to the soccer fields. Now, the new building's in place. There's no construction. There's nobody repairing the heating and cooling systems anymore. We can evacuate to the soccer fields. That's the old new rule back in place. But I will tell you, if the fire alarm goes off, make sure you take everything with you, because if it's for real, you won't get back in here. You won't be able to get your car keys. I see you got your keys in your phone. You grab everything, take it with you. That on the off chance that it is for real, we should be ready to go. A few years ago, pre-COVID, when I was teaching up in Morristown, it was about 6 years ago, I had agreed to do some classes up there. We had a gas leak in the natural science building, and we evacuated. And people left a classroom immediately and were told to leave everything behind. They couldn't get back to their car keys or their books or their computers till the next day. They had to arrange transportation to get people home. So we don't, just keep that in mind. Okay, just in case it is something for real. So, okay, then if there are no questions, I'm going to go ahead and pass this around. Just put a check in the box next to your name, and I can go ahead and report that. And then I'm going to, oh, there's a question here. Okay. Let's see. I don't know why you can't hear. Of course, if you can't hear me, you can't hear me saying that. So that makes a whole lot of sense. So, okay. Let's see if I can.
Is there a way to type it?
Yes, I can always. Oh, you got it? Okay. Just in case. Okay. Now let me get into open this up. We're going to go into AP1 lecture. We're going to go into introduction. Let's go. Let's go to screen. Okay, so if you're on Zoom, you should be able to see the slide that says Anatomy and Physiology, Introduction to the Human Body. So I see you nodding your heads. That's a good sign. So, okay, so now if I go to the next slide and your screen doesn't go, let me know. So that happened a lot yesterday. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about why we do the things we do in AP. Introductory material. How do I make it sound as interesting as it can be? Well, you'll just have to bear with me. One of the things we discover in A&P is we talk differently. We use different terms. These different terms have different meanings. We don't use up and down anymore. We try not to use left and right a whole lot. For example, because left and right can fool you. If I'm going to draw a picture of a heart here, that's a heart, trust me. 4-chambered heart, 2 upper chambers, 2 lower chambers. Now, if I'm drawing this on the board, I'm going to label this side the right side, and this the left side, even though that looks backwards to you. Because that's how the heart sits in our chest. like this, the right side and the left side. So it's all about perspective. You say left and right has different meanings depending on your perspective. So we have to use the correct terminology. We tend to use terms like medial and lateral and distal and proximal as opposed, and we try not to use up and down also because, up and down are really variable. They float around all over the place. So we try to be more precise. So, and everybody uses the same terms. Now there's going to be a whole bunch of terms that come floating around here. Medial and lateral, distal and proximal, things like that. We're going to use a lot, but we're not going to, some of the more exotic terms, we'll pick them up as we go along. You'll pick up more when you get into whatever healthcare you're going to go into. Every division of healthcare has their own little set of their own language. Now, this also reveals that I like old science fiction movies. This is from the original Frankenstein movie, where Dr. Frankenstein has detected a heartbeat in the monster. Now you notice what he's saying there. He's actually very accurate. He's saying it's alive. Because remember, the monster was put together with a whole bunch of body parts from different donors. We'll just be nice about it and say donors, sources. It was neither male nor female. It was an it because of how it was put together. He's being precise. Dr. Frankenstein is being precise in describing his creation in here. So, okay. Anatomy and physiology. Anatomy is the study of structure, why things look like they do. How do they fit together? How do bones fit together in our arms and legs? How do all the 28 bones that come together to form our skull work to fit snugly together for us? Physiology is the function. How do they work? I can say the anatomy of the heart, of the human heart, is 4 chambers. 4 chambers, 2 upper and 2 lower chambers. The physiology tells you why. The heart pumps. The heart is a double pump. The right side of the heart pumps blood to the lungs. The left side of the heart pumps blood to the body. They pump the exact amount of blood each contraction. 72 beats a minute for 80, 90, 100 years, over and over and over again, pumping blood for us. And it has to be accurate, it has to be precise. The structure is a 4-chambered heart, 4-chambered pump. The physiology is pumping blood to 2 different directions in the body. We pump to the lungs so the blood can become reoxygenated. We pump to the body so the cells can get the oxygen. That's the physiology. The physiology is how things work. How do we, the anatomy may be our digestive system consists of the esophagus going to our stomach and into our small intestine. The physiology is how we break nutrients down and obtain energy and protein from those nutrients and how we use them. That's the physiology. How do we get our muscles to contract? We know that they pull on bones. The anatomy of your arm consists of muscles attached to bones. That's great. But what's the physiology, the actual work taking place inside the muscle so that we can contract? And how do we control it? How do we control muscle contraction in our arm? What's the difference between shaking hands gently with somebody or smacking them up alongside the head? Granted, they may need it, either one, but how do you control that? Who hasn't shaken hands with somebody that they're not really, they don't know well, and it just sort of give you that little, sort of that weak, hi, how you doing type of thing. But someone that or someone that you're really happy to see, you give them a very firm, you put some emotion behind that shake. How do you control that? Yeah, that's the physiology. Okay. When we look at anatomy, we look at it, we have several different perspectives. We look at the gross anatomy, the exterior anatomy. We look at the large structures. We look at the head. We look at the arms and legs and the hands and feet. We look at the skin and we observe. We look at things that look perfectly normal, and we look for things that may be out of place. You may be talking to a patient and notice a spot on their skin. And maybe they were painting earlier and they got paint in their skin, but it looks like a mole, or maybe, which could lead to a skin cancer, or maybe it's just something simple. Gross anatomy allows you to look at the surface structures. There is, and sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes we overreact to things. There was a case of a few years ago. An individual showed up in the emergency room, and they thought he was cyanotic because his skin was blue. His whole torso and his arms were blue. His neck was blue. And they were running all these tests on him and having, had oxygen on him, and had lines running into him. And then somebody just realized that he had been working in the fields. He was a farmer, and he was wearing blue overalls. And the dye, it was such a hot day, the dye had come out with his perspiration and had stained his skin blue. There was nothing wrong with him. He looked like he wasn't in good shape, but there was nothing wrong. Sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes we overreact to things. It happens. And then other times, it's not an overreaction. So but you look at your patient, you look at what's going on. How do things look? Now, we can't see through the skin, but we can at least get some ideas of what's going on. And sometimes, if you touch the skin, does it hurt or does it feel fine? A lot of times you can tell things from that too. If nothing else, then it might point you in the right direction. So microscopically, we get down to the cellular level. We look at cells. What do the cells look like? What do red blood cells look like? What do white cells look like under the microscope? That's cytology, looking at different cells. You can see there's two different types of cells right there on the slide. We have on the right-hand side of at the bottom in blue, those are human cheek cells. And below that is a nerve cell. So we can look at cells, and do they look normal or do they look abnormal? One thing I can say, I'm not a pathologist, but I can tell you that when you look at cancer cells, they just look ugly. They have no organization. If you're at any way, shape, or form OCD, you look at cancer cells, and cancer cells are definitely not OCD because they're just ugly. And structures that have cancers growing in them, there's irregularities and enlargements and shapes that shouldn't be where they are. Because most of our cells, our healthy cells, are organized. They look pretty much the same. So, and we can look at cells and we can look at tissues. Cytology is looking at individual cells. Histology is looking at tissue. So if we look at a section of muscle, that's histology. That's a tissue. If we're looking at an individual cell, it's cytology. Physiology is a little different. We're more looking at the function than anything else. How do things work? The shape of the organ often dictates how it's going to work. The heart is a classic example here. It's a 4-chambered structure. The top 2 chambers are receiving blood coming back to the heart, and the bottom 2 chambers are pumping blood out to the body or to the lungs. And the heart is driven by an electrical signal that it generates on its own. Our bodies are electrically charged, by the way. We have our nervous system and our muscles are all electrically charged. If you stuck a voltmeter in our skin, it would register somewhere around minus 90 millivolts. So we are very much an electrical organism, because the electrical charge is how we send nerve impulses. So we see the pumping of the blood there. That's one part of physiology, the pumping. Another part of physiology is the pattern of electrical signals that goes through the heart. It's a very specific pattern. When the heart contracts, we start a signal at the upper up there. It would be in that picture to the upper left-hand side as we see it, that spreads across the top two chambers and goes down the middle all the way to the pointing end of the heart. They call it the apex, and then it comes up the sides. It does that pattern all the time. Now below that, we're looking at, in the yellow and gold chart, that's a kidney. That's showing how we filter our blood through our kidneys. That's what our kidneys do. They filter our entire blood supply 60 times a day. Every 45 minutes, our entire blood supply has been filtered and cleaned out. If we didn't recover what gets filtered through the kidneys, we'd dry up in under an hour. So, well, we recover about 90% or so of what goes through the kidneys. Because we pee about 1.5 liters of urine a day. That's all the waste that our kidneys get rid of. But we've filtered our entire blood supply, all 8 liters of plasma that goes through there and gets cleaned out. Something as simple as swallowing. This is an X-ray image over here of someone swallowing. You can see they're taking something into their mouth, and the tongue pushes it back, and it goes down the esophagus, and there is a little ring of muscle in the esophagus. It has to open up to let the food or liquid go through, and then it closes back so that we don't suck air down into our bellies, which is a real unpleasant feeling. And also another structure has to work to close off the airway so we don't aspirate food or water or any kind of liquid into our lungs. That's a really complex set of mechanisms there that have to work every time we take a breath or we swallow something. So there's, simple things like swallowing. There's a whole lot of mechanisms at work to allow us to swallow. Yeah, the heart's exciting. Everybody loves talking about the heart, but a lot of the other structures, they have just as important for us too. Now, our ability to sense touch, pressure, pain, odors, vision, sound, all of that depend on both structure and function. Our ears are designed from an anatomical perspective to collect sound waves. Pressure waves moved through the air are caught by the external ear and directed through our ear canal to our eardrum, which vibrates. And that vibrates a set of bones, which then dump those vibrations into our inner ear, where we finally turn those into nerve impulses so that we can hear. Our ability to smell something depends on molecules of odorants landing on olfactory receptors at the top of on the inside top of our nasal cavity, which then stimulates some receptors. And we generate another nerve impulse there so we can tell what the odor is. And just to throw us a curve, on both of these, we remember what sounds are and what odors are. You hear a sound, and you know what it is. Someone drops something, or you hear glass breaking, you recognize that sound. You recognize an odor. You recognize, you spilled gasoline in your clothes earlier, and you know how when you get gasoline on your clothes, it just stays there all day. It doesn't go away. We've all had that. You recognize it. You recognize an odor. You recognize the odor of your favorite food or your favorite flower. Odors also tie into memories and emotions. Not only do you remember what an odor, the specific odor, you might remember an event that happened. If your favorite meal is I don't know, let's say roast turkey. Okay, most people like roast turkey or barbecued, grilled turkey or whatever, or smoked turkey. It doesn't matter. But when you smell that, it might make you think of, Thanksgiving family events. When crazy Uncle Fred collapsed on the dining room table into the mashed potatoes, and your mother got all upset and ran screaming out of the house, because you remember those memories. I'm not making some of this stuff, you don't want to. Anyway, everybody has a crazy Uncle Fred somewhere. Okay, and I'll use crazy Uncle Fred a lot as an example. The point is, though, that the odor can trigger a memory and an emotion that may make you unhappy, make you angry. Years later, you may have a visceral reaction simply based on the odor. Even something as simple as when you get up in the middle of the night and you're walking through the dark house and you discover that your dog didn't make it to the outside, and you step in something and the odor just comes wafting up, and your visceral reaction is, for some people, nausea and disgust. And even if you think about it, the memory of that odor can sometimes make people sick. So things like that. Yeah. We can't explain how memory and emotions all tie together, but they sure do. So now, to understand anatomy and physiology, we have to consider pressure changes, and we have to consider electrical charges in our bodies, and we have to consider chemical principles like, is it too salty? Is it sweet? Is it too acidic? Is it too basic? I mean, do we deal with acid and bases in the human body? Anybody ever hear of acid reflux? What is acid reflux? We generate too much acid. We have hydrochloric acid forming in our stomach from what are called proton pumps, generating lots of hydrogens. Hydrogens are called protons. And we take Pepsid and omeprazole, I guess it's the same thing, and Nexium, all these different medications to shut down the proton pumps so we don't have reflux. Who knew that reflux was such a bad thing? It is. It makes, a lot of the side effects of reflux have been around for years. When you consider that reflux causes something very similar to sinus drainage, many people that have sinus issues may actually be suffering from reflux. So just think about that for a second. Anyway, lots of things all work together. So we are definitely dealing with complementary actions. Structure and function fit together. The heart is a 4-chambered heart because it needs to be. Our ability to manipulate our environment allows us to feed ourselves. It allows us to burn up carbohydrates and release energy in our muscles so that we keep a constant body temperature. We process food and we get rid of waste products. We filter our blood and clean it up every day, constantly. You know, it's so precise. You know, we filter our blood so many times. If our kidneys shut down, we're dead in 48 hours. It's pretty much a given. You know, if the kidneys shut down and there is no dialysis effort, your patient will be, you know, will be dead within 2 days because of the waste products that are going to accumulate in here. It's that specific and it's that narrow. We live in a very narrow range of parameters. We don't like to get above 98.6 or 37 degrees Celsius. We don't like to get too hot. We don't like to get too cold. We don't like it when our heart rate gets too fast or too slow, or our breathing rate gets too fast or too slow. We don't like it when our blood pressure goes way up or goes way down. We have a very narrow range that we have to live in. Okay. Now, for those of you that like really boring, did I say boring? For those of you that like organizational charts that look very interesting and entertaining, this isn't one of them. But it basically what it's saying is we start out at the very top of this pyramid with dealing with individual molecules and atoms, you know, like something as simple as water, H2O, or oxygen, you know, O2, atmospheric oxygen. And we build on that, and we, you know, atoms create molecules, and then we have cells that depend on the contents of these molecules. We have proteins that help build our cells and fats, and then cells become tissues, and tissues become organs, and organs become organ systems. And we put all the organ systems together, we've got us. So, and if you're not visual, this is a simplified version of that chart. All the organ systems in our bodies work together all the time. And they're all, you can argue that they're all equally important. There are 11 different systems in our bodies. They all have to work together to keep us in balance so that we can function effectively. The skin, you know, the skin is the largest organ of the body. That's how I say of the body. Internally, it's probably the brain or the liver. But if you consider the whole body, the skin is the largest organ. Now the skin, we don't give the skin a lot of credit, but it does a lot of things for us. It is our first line of defense against pathogens, you know, bacteria and viruses. A bacteria will not get through your skin unless there's an opening. The same with a virus. Bacteria and viruses don't start burrowing through your skin. They may get on your skin, and then we may provide an entry to them because we do things like rubbing our noses and touching our face and you know, licking our fingers and all sorts of things, or picking up surfaces and eating off of them or drinking off of them that have a bacteria or a virus there. We do that. We rub our eyes. You know, one of the easiest ways to pick up a bacteria is to rub your eye. We've all done it. You know, we do it all the time. However, our skin itself doesn't let things come through. Our skin protects us. It's our first line of defense against pathogens. It also keeps us warm. It keeps us cool. We can sweat when we get hot. We can shiver when we get cold. We have sweat glands embedded in our skin. We have oil glands in our skin to keep our skin and our hair flexible. We protect all the organs underneath. This device here is called an anatomage table. It's like a 12-foot long iPad, if you will. It's made up of two 55-inch flat screens, and we have embedded in here in the computer full-length images of various cadavers, and we can take, we can take the cadaver and we can dissect it electronically, and we can take the skin off and look at the muscles. We can take the muscles off and look at the bones. And so we're going to be using this a lot. This is something else that came out of COVID. We got these last spring. They're incredibly expensive, but we don't get to cut up cadavers, but we can do the same thing here without the odor and without the juices, if you will. So, and it is extremely realistic, I can tell you that. So, but you don't have to use a scalpel. You can use your finger to go across in lieu of a scalpel. That's just sort of neat. Anyway, the skin's going to protect those organs underneath, those tissues underneath. And something else we didn't even think about, our skin makes vitamin D for us. Because at some point, most of us stop drinking milk when we get past a certain age. And later on, maybe you don't eat as much ice cream as you used to eat. Vitamin D is found in dairy products. Vitamin D is absolutely essential for us in storing calcium in our bones. We got to have vitamin D to enable us to absorb calcium in our diet. Vitamin D goes into our bones, makes them strong. Calcium goes into our bones and makes them strong. Calcium is necessary for our muscles to contract. Calcium is necessary for our nerves to send signals. Our heart depends on calcium so it can contract every 0.7 of a second. And so vitamin D is so critical to us, and it's so simple. When we stand in the sun, our skin makes vitamin D thanks to the ultraviolet radiation of the sun. That's all we have to do. Get a little sunlight, I'm making vitamin D. And then calcium in our diet gets sucked up into our body then. Now our skeleton has a lot of things to do for us. It's our bones, it's our cartilage, it's our ligaments. It protects our brain, it protects our heart and lungs, it protects our spinal cord. It also holds us upright and gives us support. It gives our muscles a place to attach. Our muscles alone are not strong enough to do the things that we need to do. Our muscles alone are not going to get us to move very efficiently. However, when our muscles pull on our bones, they amplify the strength of the muscle like a lever, pulling on a lever, and we can do things. We can manipulate our environment. Not only that, but our bones also make blood. Red cells and white cells are made in the bone marrow in our skeleton, in the long bones. Now, as adults, we pretty much confine blood producing to the areas of the top of the hip bone and the sternum and the flat bones of the skull and the flat bones of the ribs. But when we were children, just about the middle of every bone made blood for us. But we make enough from this. And our bones are a major source of calcium and phosphorus for us. Now, what happens if we don't have enough calcium? Our bones become fragile. Exactly. There is a condition which you've probably all heard of called osteoporosis. Osteoporosis affects mostly postmenopausal females. Now, older males can get it too, but it's pretty unusual. But in osteoporosis, breakdown of bone is faster than the buildup. And it's because it has to do with the lack of estrogen later in life. When a woman goes through menopause, her ovaries shut down and she stops producing estrogen. And that estrogen is what stimulates calcium deposits in her bones. And so she may develop osteoporosis over time. It's not, I think about 30% of postmenopausal females tend to develop osteoporosis. And a lot of it has to do with how much calcium they took in prior to menopause and how much did they exercise and things like that. And it can make the bones very, very weak and brittle. You ever notice how elderly females tend to be stooped over and how they shrink in stature? It has to do with the fact that their vertebrae, the bones, the spinal column are weakening and they're collapsing. And so as they collapse, the patient shrinks in stature, and some of the upper vertebrae tend to sort of splay out like this. And so she'll be bent over, she'll shrink and be bent over and have a distinctive, almost like a hump to her back, simply because of the loss of calcium. And of course, then she's fragile for other fractures. Fragile, yeah, okay. The ubiquitous throw rug in the kitchen often takes out grandma because she trips over the rug and falls down. And when you fall, what do? You put your hand out, right? And next thing you know, there's a compound fracture in the arm. So it happens. And a lot of it has to do with osteoporosis. Not everybody gets osteoporosis, but a fair amount of older women do. So, okay, I think we can stop here, and we will pick up. We did okay in getting caught up. We will pick up start with the muscle system on Thursday. Lab this afternoon. If you're in the lab today, we are going to start looking at the parts of the microscope, and at least the epithelial tissues. We'll see how far we can go before we get tired of talking, and go from there. Anybody have any questions on anything? So, well, hopefully on Thursday, I'll get Dr. Malik out of here earlier, and we won't have a green screen on the green screen. So, okay. Anybody online have a question? Okay, then I'm going to get us out of here. And if you're in lab on Zoom this afternoon, just go. You should have the link. Whatever day, if you're Zooming for lab, you'll have the link for tomorrow and Thursday as well.